the one place in the entire internet that is devoted exclusively to a discussion, a community about habits, how to build better habits, stronger habits, how to minimize bad habits. It's a live forum. Your calls, your questions, your videos, your comments, your text are all welcome right here. We've got quite a show for you, a lot of things going on. In topic A, I'll be talking about the visual nature of habits and habit cues. Topic B, we'll be going into, are some good habits better than other good habits? Some more equal than other good habits? We'll be talking about kind of the supreme good habits and how they can really take someone over the hump into success in life. In topic C, why are we killing ourselves? Human beings have an amazing capacity to depress themselves, drug themselves, kill themselves prematurely. We'll be talking about what habits get them into that place. Plus, lots of viewer mail today, live comments, but also people who've written in their questions in advance. Some top news stories, some interesting ones that grabbed my attention, unique habits in the workplace all over the world. Some of them will surprise you, such as in Finland, where it's common to have workplace meetings in saunas where everybody's naked. Now, these are typically same-sex business meetings, but still something that would shock a lot of people in different parts of the world to suggest business meetings in naked saunas. All that and more. I want to break with our normal custom and sort of dive, rather than going right into topic A, I wanted to give a little extra attention to some of the questions about habits that come up from some of you, regular viewers here, listeners, but also some of my regular students. As many of you know, I have online courses about habits, public speaking, media training, life skills habits on a lot of platforms, including Udemy. And more of my Udemy students are reaching out here in this forum. These are kind of the live office hours for the teacher, this show each day. So I wanted to dive right in to some questions that some of my Udemy students wrote to me in the last 24 hours. This one is from Burin Sansui and has a particular class about interview questions. I have confusion about interviews. When the team asks a question that you aren't able to answer, what can you do? Now, it's inevitable. Someone asks you enough questions, there'll be something you don't know the answer to. There's no one perfect response. Quite often, they don't expect you to have an answer. They want to see, how do you react under pressure? What you don't want to do, there's no one perfect answer, but the perfect thing that is the wrong thing to do is to look embarrassed, flustered, awkward, blush. All of these things send a signal to prospective employers that you're not comfortable, you're not confident, you don't think on your feet clearly, and might be dangerous putting you into a meeting with clients. So that's the worst thing you can do, to specifically look embarrassed or flustered. Now, if it's something you can find out, let the person know. I'm happy to find out, and I'll send you an email later today if that's helpful. If you don't know, don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but then bridge to something you do know. Show your thought process. Some interviewers have been known to ask things like, how many marbles would fit into a Volkswagen? And it's not that you need to know the exact number, but if you could at least show a thought process and say, well, I think the front seat is 5 feet and the back seat is 4, and I'm roughly calculating it's 32 square feet, and each marble is roughly 1/4. Do something where you're showing them your math skills and showing them a logical process. Even if you're way off, the employer is likely to be impressed. Typically, if you get hired or not hired in a job interview, it's not because you got one wrong answer or you didn't know the answer. The biggest problem of all for most people when you're in a job interview is not saying anything memorable at all throughout the whole course of the interview. Put yourself in the perspective of someone interviewing job applicants. They may be interviewing 3, 5, sometimes 10 or 15 people for one job. And now they got to think about it. They got to report to their boss, who are we going to hire? And It's typically not a function where they say, well, I hated this person because their one answer, let's scratch them off. The hardest part is being remembered at all. So go into an interview prepared to give stories, examples, case studies of how you have really given value to other organizations you've worked with, how you've demonstrated skills, how you've made a difference, how you've worked with a team. If you do that, chances are it won't matter how you answer any question that you might not know the answer to. But Barasan, if you are currently job hunting and going on interviews, I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you get the job of your dreams. This next question comes from Makish in one of my presentation skills courses. And Makish says, I am good at English while talking with people, but in some cases, while having a conversation with clients on an audio or visual call, I get stuck up with some words and my confidence falls. How should I deal with this? Well, Mahesh, the biggest thing I would suggest is don't get in the habit of fixating on one word or the right words or perfect words or a set phrase. Instead, treat this conversation like any other conversation. Now, you may be less casual than you are with your best friend. You might not be talking about a soccer game. You're talking about something business related. But when I mean treat it like any other conversation, just focus on the ideas you're sharing. Don't try to memorize a certain phrase, a certain collection of words in a certain order. Instead, just focus on the idea. Use the first words that come to you. Use the simplest words. What trips people up quite often is they tell themselves, I have to be in the habit of using big fancy words because this is a formal job interview or a formal speech or a formal video meeting. No. Use the simplest words you can use that will make it easier to understand. I'm going to take some more questions here, but I want your feedback on something. We are experimenting with some new graphics. I had some feedback that the graphic we had for my name was a little hard to read. It was kind of a script cursive. I'm looking at it now for the first time. I'm wondering, is it a little too big? You tell me. Post your comments. And regardless of whether you're joining us from live stream, upstream, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, wherever you're watching today, we're really happy you're here. Our good friends on TikTok, glad you're back, getting the main feed, and our friends on Instagram, all the other great platforms. Thanks for joining us. We are still in our first month for this show. This is the maiden month for this show. I'm very happy that you're here with us, but interested in your feedback. We've added some music, which I'm assuming you are hearing right now, sort of background sound to be a little more uplifting. We have a scroll at the bottom, and we have some new graphics. If you think the graphics are a tad too big, if my name is a little too big, let me know. If you think it's just right, let me know that as well. We want to hear from you. Ultimately, the show is for you. It's not, I know my name. I don't need to see my name, so it's about whether it's helpful to you. So again, post your comments, your questions, and I see Marceau is changing the graph. Didn't mean it to sound like a real-time chastisement of my colleague and producer, Marceau.
People can't see that. Only you can see that.
Ah, okay. But they can see the big name, correct, Marceau?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's actually shrinking it right now or experimenting with it. So we'll try to get that just right. One of the best habits when it comes to improving your public speaking, your communications, producing a show, producing a PowerPoint, producing a software program is constant iteration. Get feedback, try to make little tweaks to get it better and better and better. That's what I teach people when it comes to their habits for public speaking. But I'm also trying to exhibit that in my own habits of creating this show for you. We try to make it a little bit better each and every time. I actually like the size of that graphic more, Marcel. So we'll see if anyone else notices or even cares. Again, a little bit out of ordinary for the show today. I'm going right to the viewer mail. We had so many emails, questions, comments. I'll be getting to the big topic A of the day in a few minutes. This next one is from Brahma, and this is a student in my complete job interview skills course. Is it okay to be talking about working in different organizations? Most people want to talk about the work in different organizations, but doesn't that make the employer feel you're going to leave them soon if employed, instead of being impressed with you, the fact that you've worked in other organizations? I think as long as you are giving relevant information about how you solve a problem, how you used your skills, how you helped customers, clients, prospects, colleagues, whatever it was, I think someone interviewing you is going to find that relevant. I don't think they will be threatened at all by you referencing experiences in other organizations. What else are you going to reference if you are coming from an organization? Brahma has a second part question. Is it okay to ask the salary or request salary in an open salary for a job in a job interview? Wouldn't asking about the salary make it seem like you are focused more on the salary than the job? I think that is a problem. Here's my rule of thumb. Don't ever ask about salary, especially in the first job interview. Now, if you're on your 14th level and they're asking you and there's a discussion or a negotiation, that's fine. The rule of thumb I have is one step at a time. Make sure they want you and you want them. Make sure that they want to hire you for this job. Make sure you would like this job. Then, when there's an agreement on it, then and only then do I think it's appropriate to bring up salary. I like to have someone else, if it's a typical job, I'd like to have someone make the first offer. Now, I will give an offer if I'm asked. When it comes to me being interviewed, for example, if someone's hiring me as a trainer for the day or a week-long workshop, then I just give them standard fees, and that's what it is, and I don't really negotiate on that. But do not bring it up at first, because it can strike people as presumptuous. They'll be like, hey, you're getting ahead of yourself. It's kind of like going on a first date and saying, what are you going to feed me for breakfast? Just can strike people as presumptuous. Mahitika writes in with a question, another one of my online students, and Mahi is in the Complete Communication Skill course. And says, I'm very nervous about a second interview, probably because I know the other candidate and I appreciate his communication skills are better than mine. Do you have any suggestions? Just let me know. Well, Makil, first of all, congratulations on getting through the first interview. You obviously did something well. This organization obviously sees you as potentially qualified for the job. You cannot compare yourself to anyone else. If you do that, that's a fool's errand. You have to get in the habit of just focusing on yourself, doing the best you can, focusing on the interviewer, answering their questions, and making them feel comfortable with you. You got to get out of your head. First of all, you don't know what the other person's job references are. Maybe yours are 1,000 times better. You also don't know if the other person truly wants this job. If your competitor has so many great communication skills beyond yours, well, maybe they have 10 job offers. Maybe they don't even want this one. So you're getting ahead of yourself. And don't presume that the other candidate is going to be ranked higher than you. Don't presume that there isn't a third candidate or a fourth candidate. Instead, just focus on your strengths. Just focus on what is going to make you as attractive as possible to this employer. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses. I could be up for a gig at a big government agency or a major corporation hiring me. I can't compare myself and say, gosh, they're hiring someone who's younger than I am or prettier than I am or had more years on network TV than I did. I can't do that. Instead, I just have to focus on what I think is unique about me, my training services, my skills, and then execute that. Focus on that. That has to be the habit I try to employ when I'm being interviewed. At some level, everybody in life is up for an interview, is up for a job interview of sorts. It might not be a full-time job. Could be a consulting gig, could be a speaking gig. Could be an interview for a date. We're all on interviews at some level all the time. And it's important for you to focus on your strengths, what works best for you, and why you think you bring something to the table to the other person. So again, I wish you great luck with your second interview. And if you need a third or fourth, just keep doing what you're doing. This next question comes from Przemysław Gubernat. This is a student in my Complete Communication Skills course. I'll be taking part in it, dear TJ, I'll be taking part in a meeting with top management from our company as a nominated talent from one of our departments. There will be a 2-hour lunch with young talents. Do you have any advice on how to present a 30-second introduction in a professional way? There's a huge difference in age and experience level as we speak about top management and specialists level of a 200,000 employee company. Many thanks. PG. PG, my number one recommendation when you're giving an introduction, whether it's 30 seconds or any other length, say something interesting to the audience. Let me say that again, because for the most part, nobody ever does it. People feel this need when they've got a limited time for an introduction to do something like this. Thank you for introducing me. As Jim just said, my name is TJ Walker, and I'm president of Media Training Worldwide. And my company's based in New York, but we're here in Geneva today. And my company, blah, 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 awful, boring, me. Don't ever waste time of your audience by just talking about boring stuff they don't care about. So I believe you should tailor your message to the audience, what their concerns are. Certainly talk about your background at some level, but look at it through the prism of what is going to be of interest to people. So let's say, for example, I'm asked to speak to a group like yours, and you mentioned all sorts of age groups, younger people. Let's say it is 500 people, 23 and younger, 21, 23, brand new people in a marketing field. I might start off by saying, how many of you are ready to pull out your cell phone right now, make a TikTok video of you just speaking and showing it to 10,000 people, and you're confident you look your very best? I might ask a question like that. It takes about 7 seconds, and it would probably get a little chuckle. I could then follow up and say, I don't see a lot of hands there. Then I could say, hi, I'm TJ Walker. I help people build the habits so they know how to be comfortable, confident communicators, whether it's for a TikTok video at 15 seconds, a speech in front of 500 colleagues, and I would just speak very briefly on that. But I would first hook them and then tell them something about myself. I want to talk about their interest first. Once I've established their curiosity, said something to interest them, to intrigue them, then I would focus on really just one thing about myself. That's what I would do in a 30-second introduction. And that is, in fact, what I do on a regular basis, anytime I have to introduce myself. I'm TJ Walker. This is the Habit Influencer. This is a daily show. We come to you every single day, Monday through Friday, right here on about 15 or 20 different live streaming platforms to get together and have a discussion about habits, how to build the best habits for success in your life, how to reduce bad habits that are impeding fulfillment in your life. I come prepared with segments, news, opinions, research about habits to share with you, but I also let you set the agenda, ask questions and comments too. Before I dive in, let's check in with our good friends on Instagram and TikTok. I see that Sai has joined us. Sai, good to see you. Ben Shopo is with us. Evelyn has joined us. And some of you are from Instagram. I see our TikTok friends are back. Forgive me, I actually...
Penguin box at the bottom.
And Penguin wrote, what's the best advice you ever received? Now, that is a tough one. People do ask me that from time to time. My sort of stock answer is the best advice I've ever received is don't take any one person's advice or one philosophy's advice or one religion's advice. Get the widest range of opinions you possibly can. Get a wide spectrum of beliefs. Read in the widest swath you can across the spectrum on any subject, and then think about all the different perspectives you've heard. Reflect and come up with your own advice for you. That's sort of my guiding principle. That's, I think, the best advice I've ever heard, is to really take a collection of all the advice and make sure you've done thorough research on any field, rather than just quickly taking one advice from the first smart person or interesting person you see. Penguin, thanks so much for that question. I see Anderson has hopped in and says hello. Thanks. Joining us on TikTok today. Yes, and forgive me, I did accidentally disconnect from our TikTok friends yesterday. We had a few technical snafus. Now you're joining us through the regular feed. You can see me looking at you rather than on the floor on my cell phone staring off the side of my face. I also want to say hello to user 93005 on TikTok. And how long should a job candidate wait before calling back? We were talking a moment ago about when you're being interviewed for jobs. Let's say you've done the interview, they say, we'll get back with you. What I think a best practice is to do a quick email the next day saying, thank you so much for your time. But another tip that very few people do, and I've been guilty of not doing this, but a great habit, a handwritten thank you note. It's so rare. Someone might interview 100 people for a job. If you send a handwritten thank you note to someone who interviewed you, you will be remembered. And I think that dramatically increases your chances of them either calling you, emailing you, or doing something to let you know as a matter of courtesy, because it's showing extreme courtesy on your part. They are courteous back. Now, I'm not up for regular job interviews since I've had my own business for 20 years, but I do have clients and prospects call me all the time, ask for a proposal. I just ask them, I'm sending you the proposal. You'll get this in 5 minutes. Let me know that you received it. When would you like me to follow up? And sometimes they say, we got to act quickly. Call me tomorrow. Other times they say, well, we're planning this for third quarter. So realistically, it's going to be in 3 months. Call me in 3 months. I make a note and I call them in 3 months. You can't go wrong by asking, when and how would you like me to follow up? I think that's a great practice. We have a number of our friends joining us on Facebook today. Let's check in there. And I see my good friend Merle from Geneva has written in. Says, good to see you. Thanks for the kind things you said about me yesterday. Yes, Merle wrote in yesterday, and he learned a lot. If you can scroll down for me, Marceau, I can't see all of Merle's comments. I understand you're doing it from a phone. What level do you fix the camera? How far? So today I'm not doing this broadcast from a phone. I have I believe it's a Canon camera. It's a broadcast quality camera of some sort, maybe 3 years old. It's mounted onto the wall. It's about eye level. I'm standing here in my studio. So this is a professional several $1,000 video camera that if you're watching me today, you're seeing it through that. Now, I've also done live streams through a webcam before. Some of you may have seen that in certain rehearsal shows we did in December. Some of you, as recently as yesterday on TikTok, were watching the live stream through this. I had a simple cell phone and I had a little tripod. And that's how some of you are watching it. I don't think the camera matters that much these days. The better the quality, the better things are. But you can do a live stream just with a cell phone. And if you have interesting comment, interesting insights, if you're trying to help people, you'll often get an extraordinarily positive response. I've also seen people who have $50, $100, $200,000 studios. Everything is top of the line technically, but they don't have anything interesting to say. So therefore, not much of an audience, and things just fall apart. Speaking of audience, I'm happy to report that yesterday was our largest audience ever. And you might see on any one platform you're on, it doesn't look like there's that many, but we're on approaching 20 different platforms. And some like upstream, we have more than 100 people watching just on that stream. So Up Live. Up Live is our greatest brand new platform we're on, and very happy from all of our friends joining us on Up Live. So Murli, I hope that's helpful, and forgive me for any misunderstanding. We weren't doing these broadcasts from a cell phone, although who knows, if I'm out on the road or stuck in an airport, I may be doing this show from a cell phone one day, and I hope it'll still be delivering valuable information to you. Peggy writes in, says, good job, Marceau. So hats off to Marceau, our excellent producer who always does a fine job. Peggy says, I'd rather the font, it's easier to read, but you're right, it's a little large. So, and Peggy, I don't know if you meant the initial font we had today or if the size that's on now is a little too large, but please let us know. If you could scroll up, Marceau, if I may have missed anything else. Ajmal Walkman says hello on Facebook. Ajmal, thank you so much for joining us. And I think there were a few other TikTok, Instagram friends who had written, and I didn't get to respond to them yet either. Our friend Fortune Tribes is with us today.
Fortune Tribes just came in.
Okay, good. Good to see you, Fortune Tribes. And he says, today's people are expecting camera quality for girls' videos only. Not quite sure what you mean by that, Fortune Tribes, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and just say, I think all things being equal, the better video quality you have, it can only help you. But I can tell you from my own experience of having produced video since 1975, believe it or not, some of the most popular videos I ever had were with me with a shaky cell phone. And I've been on YouTube since about 6 months after it was founded. And I remember, about 14 years ago, I made a little video with just what I thought were tips for men who didn't have a lot of hair getting a haircut. Believe it or not. It sounds ridiculous. Probably was ridiculous, but I was in one of these phases where I was trying to practice public speaking as often as possible. I was getting a haircut. And in my own practice of public speaking training, media training, I do often have men ask me for tips on hair, and if they have thinning hair, and what's the best thing to do. My advice typically is don't do the comb over. Don't dye your hair black around here and paint the top of your head. If you don't have a lot of hair, that's okay. Just cut it really short and let people know you're not focused on it. Don't have something really long and do something elaborate. So I was getting a haircut one day, and I was just holding the phone down and giving these tips, saying, if you're a man like me and your hair is really thinning, don't try to fool anyone. Don't do anything elaborate. Just cut it really short and be done with it. And I did a little video. Boom, it had more views than any other YouTube video I'd had. And I'd had fancy productions before. I'd used editors, producers, B-roll. This one video quickly had about 50,000 views. So that's why I say it's not necessarily about the camera. There are people now on the platform TikTok who do everything from a cell phone. It's a platform really geared towards doing stuff on the cell phone, and many of them have millions of views. I put videos on a lot of different platforms, and Marceau, my producer, does a fantastic job. I'd urge you to check out some of the 7 to 10 minute videos produced on YouTube. But having said all that, my most popular video in the last 2 months was a simple handheld video, 15 seconds long for TikTok, 80,000 views. And I forgot what the topic was. It was something about a basic habit, as all of my content is these days. But just a cell phone camera, nothing fancy. Let's check in with our friends on YouTube. Mohammed writes in to the whole team. Thanks for hearing. Thanks for saying hello. Good to see you. And Mohammed says the graphics are absolutely fine. Well, Mohammed, thanks for the feedback. I like this size now. This looks, to me, better. Although, Marcel, we still have a problem where the video is freezing. It looks weird to me to see the fire not moving. Because now it seems to be moving again. And for those of you...
It freezes every so often, and it just plays again.
Yeah.
That's just the computer. I think it's just the computer.
And for those of you just tuning in, we try to be transparent. This is not a show about video production. It is a show about building habits for you to be more successful in life, in every aspect of life. But I try to be as transparent as possible, because one habit that can help you be successful in life is communicating more effectively, especially in media, and especially in internet media, which is what we're here for. So I do occasionally like to kind of go behind the scenes and tell you how we're doing things. I'm in a studio now on the first floor of my house. This is my own living room right here, but it's a video clip of my living room. And unfortunately, the video just freezes every now and then. So it's not just B-roll that we bought off the internet somewhere. It is my own home. Wanted to have sort of a nice, warm home feel. But it's so much easier to produce a show and to shoot a show in a little studio where everything is controlled. The studio I'm in has no windows, whereas if you see right behind me, that is a window. The blinds are shut, but because it's a window, varying amounts of light come in throughout the day, and it completely changes the whole look of the room with the light. And that's why most studios don't have any windows. It's much, much harder to control the lighting. When you see a studio like the Today Show or Good Morning America with windows, they also have about $1 million worth of lights above. So they can make anything look like anything when you have that much money for lights. But if you don't have quite as big a budget, things like controlling the lights by eliminating windows makes it much easier. I'm TJ Walker. This is the Habit Influencer. This is the program where we talk about your habits, how to build your habits and make them stronger so you can have a more fulfilled life. Marceau, did I get everyone from Instagram and TikTok? I feel like I slighted them, and I definitely don't want to slight our friends on TikTok after having accidentally pulled the plug out from them on the show yesterday. I see the YouTube.
They always come back.
I see the YouTube comments, and Athlete Story podcast has come out. Now that sounds interesting. I don't recognize you from Instagram before, but I'd love to hear a little more about what that is all about. Athlete Story podcast. And by the way, feel free to promote whatever creation you work on. If you have a podcast that puts a spotlight on athlete stories, just tell us what it is. It's not considered spam here. I don't want you putting up, coupons for 50% off of a Bitcoin or Viagra. I don't want that kind of thing. But if it's something that you've created where you're putting a spotlight on other people's ideas, feel free to put a little post here. I'd love to know what you're doing. What I'll be talking about in our big topic B today is how some habits are actually sort of meta habits. They're much higher habits. They're better habits than others. And I believe one of those supreme habits is creating something daily. There are other habits like drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. That's a good habit. I do it. But drinking a glass of water in and of itself is not going to propel you to all sorts of other successes and fun and joy. Creating something that's useful to others, I think, is one of these higher level habits. So if you create a great podcast for others, that helps. I'd like to think that the show I'm creating here, bringing people together, helping, is one of those habits too. So feel free to tell us, oh, I've been on Athletes. Oh, I do remember now. Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, it's been a while. It's been a while. I have been a guest on the Athlete Story podcast. Thanks so much, and I apologize for being absent-minded. Go ahead and give a link to your podcast, and I'm happy to give you some extra promotion. Thanks.
Tell them to share it on Facebook, because
oh, and
links on TikTok.
Okay, that's it. So, Athlete Story, you're joining us on Instagram. If you switch over to Facebook, our Facebook page, if you just go to facebook.com and type in TJ Walker Personal Development, you'll see this live stream there too. That's generally a better place to put the full URL so we can link to your podcast and people can hear it. And I'd like to come back and hear it again. Forgive my lapse of memory there. So we have a lot of friends joining us on every single platform. Martin's Veronica has joined us, or Martinez Veronica has joined us from TikTok. We have more friends joining us on TikTok and Instagram today. And so happy to hear from all of you. It means a lot to me to be able to put a spotlight on top stories of the day, top insights, and new tips and tricks to build better habits. We're going to dive right into topic A today. Topic A, you must see your habits. We human beings are visual by nature. We're visual creatures. You've heard the expression, a picture's worth 1,000 words. It's not just a picture, it's anything you see. If you're walking by a store and you see fresh chocolate chips coming out of an oven and then you smell it, it's often a cue and it triggers a certain response. You walk into the store and you eat the cookie and that creates an instant reward. It feels good. Your mouth feels good. Your tummy feels good. And that is how many habits work. We see something, it elicits an action, and we get a reward. Now, it's crucial to realize this because when you are aware of how your own brain works, you can manipulate your brain the way you want it. If you want to eat more fresh fruit in your life and less junk food, first easy step to do is to put fresh fruit out on your counters. Put them on your kitchen table, your dining room table. Put them on the counters in your kitchen. That's what I do in my own kitchen. If you have potato chips in your house or cookies in your house, put them so they are hidden. Put them in a drawer. Put them in a cabinet. Far better to not even have them in your house. If it's not in your house, then you can use laziness to your benefit. Because if you feel like a cookie or potato chips and there's none in your house, if you're even a little bit lazy, now you're not going to eat it because it will be too much work to have to get in your car or go down an elevator, walk somewhere to the store. One of the classic examples given by many habits experts is if you want to work out first thing in the morning, put your gym shoes out, your gym bag out already packed, or your running wear laid out at the foot of your bed. So as soon as you get up, the first thing you see, your gym shoes. It's a visual cue. If there are things you're doing now that you don't want to do, remove them from your sight. Now, I'll say something. I don't think I'm using the exact politically correct terminology here. My purpose is not to offend, but if you want to be faithful to your spouse, perhaps best not to go to strip joints, whorehouses, houses of ill repute. There's a lot of different words. I don't mean to be offensive to anyone. Places of work by sexual workers. I don't know what you call that, but I think you get my point. If you don't want to stray from your spouse, for example, don't have visual things to tempt you in real life. Stay at home and read a book. It makes things much, much easier. If you want to have a real conversation with members of your family at dinner time, and you have well, this is a regular phone. Many of you probably have not seen one of these in years. I do still use this. I think it's good to have a landline. I should have held up this. If you want to have a real conversation with a real friend or family member during dinner, my advice is don't have this in eyesight. I don't mean just put it on mute. I don't mean just put it on vibrate. And I don't even mean just turn it off. I mean remove it from your eyesight. By doing that, you dramatically reduce the odds that you're going to get distracted, want to check email, want to Google something. They pick up their phone for a second. You're going to feel the obligation to look at your phone, and then they may be back in 2 seconds, and you're now immersed in an email from a boss or colleague or client, and you've lost your train of thought for the next half an hour. We are visual in nature. Use that. One cue for me to work every day is when I go down to my office on the first floor. Everything is clean. The desk is clean. There's nothing on the chair. There's nothing on the desk. It's a clean area. And it's a cue to me, okay, you're ready to work? No distractions. Now, as I've mentioned to some of you before, I'm too lazy to get in a car and drive to a gym. And there's no gym within walking distance of me. But I do have a small gym in my home. I have glass walls rather than regular walls. So I cannot walk from my office to this TV studio without seeing the gym. I have the pull-up bars right there, jutting out into the hallway, in the doorway, connecting the gym to the hallway. By seeing that every day, at some point, it's a lot easier for me to do some quick pull-ups. I don't hide my perfect push-up machines. They keep you from hurting your wrist. I keep them on the floor of the gym, and that makes it easier for me to use them every single day. I don't have to go to a closet and pull it out. I don't have to set it up. I don't have to think where it's visual. The more things that you can put out right in front of your face to remind you, oh, here's a good habit. Water. I keep a couple of large jugs of water with the Brita filter on the kitchen counter. I see those as soon as I get up every morning. I don't have to go to the back of the refrigerator somewhere. I don't mind if it's not refrigerated, but the water is right there. So that is my challenge to you. I want you to really give thought to how you can see, and I mean literally see. I don't mean close your eyes and meditate and visualize, although I'm not opposed to that, and I do meditation every day. But I want to make it even easier. How can you put in your field of sight every single day real, not just pictures, but real things that will remind you to do specific positive habits that will help you get better in life, will help you accomplish what you want. You might not have a home gym, but you might have a jump rope, and you can jump rope on your back porch or your driveway. Put the jump rope out in a place where you have to perhaps step over it before you leave in the morning. And that might give you an opportunity to do 20 quick jump ropes. You have no control over billboards you might see on the way to work. I realize that. If you're watching the Super Bowl, or as I'll be doing this weekend, or the World Cup, you can't control what major corporations are putting on TV during the ads. There's a lot you can't control. If you're in the back of a cab, they have these TV loops running local news with video ads. You can't necessarily control that, although you can turn it off. But you can control a great deal of what you look at. You can control what you look at in your office, your cubicle, your library, your homework space, what's on your dinner table, what's in your kitchen. You can control that. If your kitchen counters are stuffed with mail and tchotchkes and other stuff, and you don't have actually healthy food there, it makes it more likely you're going to rummage around in the cupboard looking for packaged processed things in a box. It's more likely you're going to go into the refrigerator and perhaps get something that's highly processed with lots of sugar in it, perhaps a Coca-Cola. But if you have healthy, real food, real vegetables on your counter, it's right in your face. This morning, I was about to make an omelet for myself, and I looked around, and sure enough, I forgot to get more salsa. And we ran out of salsa yesterday. I like to have vegetable omelets without cheese as a healthy start to a morning. Very low in calorie, high in protein. I thought, what am I going to do? Well, there, right on the counter, little cherry tomatoes. We typically keep an entire container of little cherry tomatoes right there. If I'd had to go to a cupboard, go to the refrigerator, I might not have. It would have been too much work. I wouldn't have thought of it. But there I am. I've got my eggs. I've got my plate. I've got the container I make the omelet in. I've got the microwave. What am I going to do? Boom! Right in front of me, there are tomatoes. Made it easy. Made it simple. Now, do I have more willpower than people who just eat a bunch of sugary cereal? Am I more motivated? No, I have no particular monopoly on willpower or motivation. I just saw something. I saw it right there, and it was easy, and it played to my laziness. That is the beauty of really focusing on the visual nature of how we are as human beings and using that to your benefit to make sure your daily habits are more effective. That's why if you have a choice between riding a bike and driving to work, if you can ride a bike and it's not cold, rainy, or dangerous, put the bike out. Put the bike behind your car so you have to touch the bike before using your car. You'll be more likely to use it because it's visually in your space. You want to improve your habits. Don't focus on more willpower. Don't focus on motivation. Those are fleeting. They are fair weather friends. A little bit of stress, you're tired, having a bad day, willpower and motivation will run away. But your eyes, when they see something positive, that works. Fill your eyes with positive visual reminders of what you want your habits to be. I'm TJ Walker. Thank you for joining me in Topic A. We're going to take a quick 30-second break. We'll be right back. We have more this hour. We have the entire second hour. Lots more to come. Stay tuned.
And go.
Welcome back to the Habit Influencer. I'm TJ Walker. We have lots of time left today for your comments, thoughts, reflections, and I'll be giving you a lot more insights, facts, news, information, and up-to-date tips and techniques on how to improve your habits. Today's online course spotlight. We don't have regular advertisers on this program, but we do occasionally put a spot, not overdoing it, but we occasionally put a spotlight on a great new online course to help you with habits in some aspect of your career. Today's spotlight is on the complete PowerPoint and presentation skills Masterclass. in the show notes, I have a link to you where you can get a significant discount. The course is normally about $200, and with this discount, you'll get it for about $12 or so. So it's a great deal. If you ever have to create a PowerPoint slide, if you ever have to give a PowerPoint, this is the show, or excuse me, the course for you. So please check it out. Happy to have so many new viewers joining us today from all over the web, from all over the world, and wanted to say hello to several of them. Joining us today on YouTube, Muhammad, we mentioned earlier, Robert Scott has joined us, and Robert has a fantastic eye for video production and audio quality. So Robert, I've really appreciated your feedback and appreciate your expertise. Hey, TJ and Marceau, Rory, the video quality can be important depending on the content, absolutely, but quality audio is essential. IMO. I don't know what IMO means. Your audio today sounds better than last time, by the way. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So, Rob, here's a question for you. Before we started this show, Marceau and I were trying to do everything top quality. We thought we were going to be doing this show from my living room every day and on the road a lot. So I went and bought a $1,000 microphone, the highest quality. What was the name of that microphone again, Marceau?
The Sennheiser Shotgun.
The Sennheiser Shotgun. And then when we decided, and it sounded great, when we decided to do the program back in my regular studio, it seemed awkward to have this big sort of stick around. Do we have it here? Does it make it look like a radio show or podcast? We wanted more of a produced TV show feel. So I went back to this regular lav mic, you can see. And this is not an expensive microphone. It's not a $5 microphone, but it's probably a $150 microphone. So my question to you is, do you think I'm doing it wrong? Should we somehow try to get the Sennheiser super fancy microphone back? Or does this do the job for what we're doing? We'll toss that out there to you. And Unorthodox writes, Robert says, thank you both. Sorry about the misspell. Well, I didn't notice the misspelling, but I'm guilty of misspelling myself as well. So, Robert, and to all of you watching, this show is primarily not a show about production, quality, and any of that. It's a show about helping you build stronger habits in every aspect of your life. But one habit is to always present yourself the best you can so that you can make it easier for people to focus on your message. So if you do have suggestions on how to make this show sound better, look better, feel better, serve you better, then please let me know, let Marceau know. I thought I just heard my microphone drop, but that was, I think, the heater going on. Let's check in with some of our friends on Instagram and TikTok. Chickspra has written in, thanks for joining us. Nambuzana has written in from Instagram. Also, Greg Hinthorn is joining us from TikTok. The TikTok community continues to amaze me. It is known as a very young audience, but there are some 500 million, half a billion regular users on TikTok all over the world. So you cannot dismiss that as just some new young thing for a bunch of kids. I get more intelligent feedback, comments, and thoughts from people on TikTok and my daily videos on TikTok than any other platform at the moment. Speaking of which, my video on TikTok today generated a little bit of controversy, and my TikTok video, also on Instagram, Snapchat, and LinkedIn, just 15 seconds, where I say, if you are drinking a Coke, you are basically paying for the $16 million salary of the CEO. You're paying for the $6 billion marketing budget for the Coca-Cola company to market sugaring water to the rest of the world. Are you happy with that? I didn't mean to sound holier than thou. I grew up drinking a lot of Coke. I still drink probably 1 or 2 Cokes a year if I'm at the movies or maybe a party. So I'm not some absolute purist. But I do think it's worth contemplating your actions. Now, you can make the case that almost any purchase you make could be putting money in the hands of some CEO and some advertising budget. But when we live in a time of massive epidemic obesity around the world, when health officials estimate between 2 million and 4 million people a year die because of obesity caused in large part from drinking lots of sugary drinks, excess sugar in every product, is it perhaps a little more troublesome to be supporting this whole sugar delivery system? So that was my commentary on today's TikTok, and I appreciate a lot of the thoughtful comments people left on that platform. If you are on TikTok after the show, if you don't mind going in and check a few of my other videos on TikTok and leave your opinions, thoughts there. And all opinions are valid, even if you just want to write down, okay, boomer, which is a comment I do get from time to time. And hey, I am a baby boomer, not trying to hide anything. The baby boom cuts off at 1964. 1946, people who are born from 1946 to 1964. I was born in 1962, so I'm not hiding anything. I'm definitely a baby boomer, although for a baby boomer, I'm pretty young. I was at the tail end. Let's check in with any of our other, I think we got all of our friends there from the live chat on TikTok and Instagram.
We have another comment today from a new platform called NTV, and it's the last one all the way at the bottom.
Okay, always happy to talk to people on new platforms. As much as I've loved YouTube and have been there, I guess, for 14 years or so, and I've been on Facebook for 12 years, I'm in love with ideas and helping people, not any one platform. So I'm very happy to be a part of any platform out there. So let's take the question there that says, hey, TJ Walker Training, just noticed you don't have a Steam wallet yet. We'll hook you up with one so you can monetize your streams on here. Okay, that's exactly the sort of thing I don't consider spam. I appreciate you trying to help me and give ideas out. And part of what holds people back from creativity is they always think of, the starving artist. You create anything, a book, a video, a painting, a poem, you're basically consigning yourself to a lifetime of starvation and poverty. No, it's never been easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's never been easier to monetize your creation. So yes, thank you so much for writing with that suggestion. And because I don't know anything about Steam, and I really don't want to know anything about your platform. So always looking for, money's not the only thing in life, but let's not kid ourselves. Money comes in handy. Money's very helpful, okay? And there are a few members of my household who especially like it when I spend time making money. So yes, I'd like to hear about that. And I just missed that platform. So Steam, if you could send an email, tj@tjwalker.com. We're always looking for more opportunities to make money, because the more we monetize this, the more we can reach out, we can advertise, we can promote, we can bring more people in, we can plow some of those proceeds back into more product development for the next online course, etc. So yes, I'm completely ignorant about the monetization options on your platform. So yes, let me know. Peggy writes, baby boomers rock. Yes, we do. Definitely the original rock and roll generation.
Comments about Peggy.
Let's check in. Sunu writes, great things you're doing on speaking, sir. Well, thank you so much. Public speaking is my first true passion. I have been teaching people public speaking habits, good habits, for 35 years. So I'm happy to continue doing that. And in this course, or this show specifically, we don't limit ourselves to public speaking habits. We look at every aspect of life, but always happy to talk about public speaking. It's a true passion of mine. So, Sonu, thank you for joining us. And Jason writes in, Anthony, please come here. Roshan Anthony, please come here. Okay. Peggy says
I think he's tagging his friend to come.
Okay.
Yeah. Got two above him, Jason Kapil and then Peggy right about the microphone.
Great. And we'll come back to those at the top in the next hour. We're at the top of the hour. We have to take a brief We have to take a brief break. Don't go away. We got a whole nother hour right here of The Habit Influencer. Okay. All right.
One, two, three, go.
Welcome back to The Habit Influencer. I'm your host, TJ Walker. This is live. It is Thursday, January 30th, 2020, and we are here having a group discussion about what makes best habits. We got a lot of comments, questions coming in from social media, every possible social media platform we're on these days, and really appreciate you joining me, whatever platform you're most comfortable with. We are here for you. So I wanted to start off at the top of the hour by kind of stepping back and looking at cultural habits. There's a lot of habits that transcend culture. It doesn't matter what culture you're in. If you eat 6,000 calories of food per day and it's processed food and sugar, you're probably going to be obese and die at an early age. Certain things transcend culture, but other things are unique to particular cultures. What seems completely normal in one culture is crazy to others outside that culture. So this caught my eye. This is a story in a publication, Human Resources Director, and it looks at 10 unique workplace customs and habits from around the world. In Belgium, it is traditional to greet professionals with 3 kisses. One side of the cheek, the other, and then the other. Now, I've been to Belgium many times, and I can tell you this is the case. And if you're there the first time, it's a little awkward. You might be used to kissing somebody on the cheek, but then it's the second one, but then you can pull back, and then they're going for a third. So it's a little bit awkward, and this is the kind of thing in other cultures, this might be considered harassment almost, but there that is the practice. And this is the practice in other European countries too. And it's funny, sometimes you can be 50 miles away from a border, and on one side of the border, people kiss on 2 cheeks, and 50 miles away, it's the 3-cheek kiss. So it is just a cultural habit. In Brazil, again, I knew that about Belgium. I didn't know this about Brazil. It is a place renowned for cleanliness in the workplace. There, it's considered completely normal to bring your toothbrush and toothpaste to work. People often brush their teeth 4 times or more during the day. By the way, you can check all these. I have linked to the story in the show notes. You can't necessarily see that on TikTok, but if you go to the main Facebook page or the YouTube channel, you can see the show notes there, and you can click on this for your own reference. Now this one did catch my eye. I referenced this at the top of the hour in hour 1 of the program. Sometimes meetings can get you a little hot-headed and make you break out into a sweat. In Finland, these 2 things are the norm for some business meetings. Company meetings in Finland are at times held in saunas, and occasionally naked meeting. Now, these are the same-sex meetings. It's an honorary custom, and it's considered rude to turn down the opportunity. So make sure you pack a towel. Interesting. Also, and that's been also in Iceland, new parents both receive 3 months of parental leave. Both parents, not just the woman, both parents, with an additional 3 months available to share at 80% pay. Any stress of returning to work very early due to financial issues is absolved, and in turn can improve employee morale, and they have lower staff turnover. So that's the thinking of the habit there. Now let's switch over to some of the habits in the workplace in India. Dabawada, I may be mispronouncing that, literally translates to one who carries a box. And for nearly 200 years, it has been feeding Indian office workers. People-powered, made it home that morning and delivered by hand straight to the office. It continues to be one of the most reliable and punctual lunchbox distribution and return systems in the world. So you have your lunch brought to you in a box from someone who made it at home. I have seen that in my trips to India and Japan. Working hours in Japan are often considered extreme to the rest of the world, but employees take great pride in their commitment to overtime and dedication to their work. Radio Tasso is the morning exercise ritual that's blasted out on the airwaves each morning across Japan. The 10-minute show is the cue, one of our favorite words here in the habit world, for many across the country to exercise, helping them to feel refreshed and connected. So apparently a huge percentage of the country all at once is exercising to this one program. I've not yet been to Japan. I'm hoping to go in the next few years. Spain. The long-standing tradition of the siesta continues to be a part of many Spanish workers' daily routines. Many people in Spain work 40-hour weeks or more. However, this is spread out over a longer period of time. The afternoon siesta helps to keep the workers out of the searing midday heat in the summer months, helping to maintain energy levels and productivity. So people often just go home and spend sometimes 2-3 hours, long leisurely lunch. You come back to the office later and then work later. I do like the idea, and having been in Spain a few times, I do like the idea of how that works, but I don't really like the idea of having to work late till 7 or 8 o'clock at night. In Sweden, fika is the opportunity to step away from work to relax, where you can enjoy a coffee and snack with your colleagues. And Swedish workplaces believe that taking this time away improves productivity. Well, I've seen a lot of different research saying stepping away from work is extremely beneficial. Many places of work set aside formal fika hours of 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So it kind of sounds like the coffee break custom in a lot of places. It's a great chance to take a break, improve connections with your workmates, and reduce work pressure. So these are some of the habits in the workplace that are culturally specific, but who knows, they might work for you too. So it's always good to consider what works for other countries. One of the things I enjoy doing about traveling around the world, and in my capacity as a trainer and a speaker, I've had the good luck and fortune to travel to about 45 countries and work in specifically 35 countries. I always try to learn one thing that's different about their habit. There's always one, I don't care where you go, there's always something. I know the last time I was in the Ukraine, I was fascinated how their stoplights, the crosswalks, they don't give you the countdown of how many seconds you have left to get out of the street. They give you a countdown of how many seconds until it will be your turn to walk across the street. I found that so much more useful, because if I could see it's 20 seconds and it looks like I'm half a block away, I can leisurely walk and I know I'm perfectly timed. If I see it's going to turn green in 10 seconds, I might walk a lot faster. The first time I was in the tiny town of Slovenia, they had a habit of not putting up parking meters everywhere. There, you paid by cell phone. You made all your payments for your parking on the street by cell phone. And this was probably 13 years ago. This was, I think, even before the iPhone came out. And they were that ahead of the game. It was just a fantastic system. So you never really know what habits will pop up around the world as it relates to culture and technology that will be better than your own. So I try to learn what the best habits are everywhere. I don't necessarily instantly follow every one of them, but I try to at least learn from them and try them out where I can. I'm TJ Walker. This is the Habit Influencer. Let's go to some of the comments coming in on social media. Marceau, did we have a couple on let's see, Facebook? I think we got our friends there. And we have also a number of you joining us on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Up Live, and other ones where I always botch the name, unfortunately. Let's check in. Robert also writes that.
Gotta go a little higher.
Oh, okay. I missed a few of the comments here. We're operating with a number of screens, and my colleague Marceau is operating the screens from another location. So we have to get them coordinated sometimes. So Robert says, I think the sound quality is very good. Shotgun mics are great for isolating your voice in a noisy setting, but probably not necessary for home use. Hadn't really thought of it that way. So that's good to know. Regarding habits that help creation, there are many contests happening every day online for writing, video, music, etc. You can definitely spur your creativity to submit something somewhere. Yeah, there's nothing like a contest to get creative juices flowing. I mean, I remember as a kid, there was a marketing gimmick from a company that sold courses for art, and they would say, submit your art for diagnosis to see if you can be accepted into our art institute. I think it was a bit of a scam, but it helped motivate people to draw more. And I think I may have even submitted one at some point. I don't know. So sure, be on the lookout, but also realize you can have your own contest every day. Give yourself a contest and challenge yourself to create something valuable every single day. I think I missed a couple of Robert's comments there. So he writes. So Sai says one of the best shows on YouTube. Well, thanks, Sai. Very much appreciate that. Robert also writes, for quality home recording streams, I use a CAD Audio U37 USB Studio condenser recording microphone. They run about $50 and have a really nice quality. Now, some of you who tuned in just to learn more about habits might be thinking, oh gosh, I'm not a techie, I don't want to think about that. Here's the thing. One of the best habits you could ever get into is to learn the technology of your time so that you can do what you need to do to interact with the people you care about, your customers, colleagues, clients, friends. So we don't all have to become technologists. I'm not a technologist. I don't know how to code software. But when your great-great-grandpa got a telephone and wanted to talk to someone, if his friends didn't have a phone, he was out of luck. But now, if you want to talk to your grandfather and your grandfather says, well, I don't believe in cell phones, that doesn't make them anti-technology. That just makes them old and ornery and grumpy and out of touch and isolated, right? And maybe you can't relate to someone who doesn't want to use a phone, but it wasn't that long ago where I had friends who said, oh, don't text me, I don't text. You've got to know not everything about technology, but you do need to know the technology that is required for you to operate in the world you want to be in. I don't really want to go, I like to write, but I don't want to go back to the world where I have to use a chisel and hammer on stones or find a tree and chop it down and turn it into the stuff that they made the Bible out of. I don't want to use scrolls. And I don't really want to write on paper because I can't read my own handwriting. So that's why I type, or I used to type. These days, I much more frequently dictate. That's what I've dictated everything for our big topic B that I'm going to be talking about in just a few minutes. So that's why I very much appreciate Robert giving us some specific, easy technical tips, recommendations on things like microphones, because you're listening to me here today, and I appreciate that, but any one of you could and should be doing your own YouTube show, your own live stream on Facebook, your own videos on TikTok. And you can't just roll down the window and shout louder. You're going to have to use some microphone. And for a lot of what you do, simply using the built-in microphone on your cell phone will be enough. But there are times when you want to go beyond that. Marcia, I'm going to hop into segment B in just a moment, but before I do, was there anyone else? I didn't want to slight anyone who had been on hold with us through the top of the hour break. Was there anyone else I failed? Okay. So at any point, if we do miss you, slight you, because we're on a lot of different platforms and we have to flip back and forth all of them to see where the comments are. You're always going to be safe if you post a comment on my Facebook page. And if you haven't been there, please like it. Just go to facebook.com, type in TJ Walker Personal Development. The advantage of liking that page is quite often you'll get free access and free previews to a number of my online courses, books. You'll find out more about upcoming appearances, when I might be in your city and your country, a little more easily than other places that are just suited to video. So please keep that in mind. Topic B. Not all good habits are the same. Some good habits are more equal than other good habits. Here's what I mean. It might be a good habit to specifically not eat donuts. That is a good habit because donuts are pretty much the worst thing you could eat. No nutritional value, extremely high fat, the bad kind of fat, nothing but processed carbohydrates. It's certainly a good habit to not eat donuts. So no doubt that's a good habit. But a great habit is something like never eat second helpings. If you simply never eat second helpings, you dramatically reduce your chances of becoming obese. And when you dramatically reduce your chances of becoming obese, you dramatically reduce your chances of diabetes, of stroke, of heart attack, of so many other problems. So there's a ripple effect. So I think it's crucial you identify your really strongest, your best habits, habits that are going to help you in so many other aspects of your life. Not eating seconds is one of them. And these days, you go to a restaurant, eating one portion of an entree at a restaurant is basically eating seconds because the portion size is so astronomical. That's why although I'm not a fan of calorie counting because I think it's too tedious and no one ever really does it in the long run, I am a huge fan of calorie eyeballing. You go to a cheesecake factory and you see some entree and it looks tasty and interesting, but you can clearly see it's 3,000 calories and you only need 2,000 calories or 2,500 calories if you're a man to live in a day, then you know there's basically no way you can eat that 3,000 calorie entree without gaining weight. Split the entree with someone else at your table or put half of it in a box and take it home. So not eating seconds is a great sort of meta habit, higher level habit. You do that habit, solve so many other problems. Other habits I would put into that category. Creating something every day. If you create something every day, then there's a much better chance you're financially in better shape. Because if you're creating something and you can sell it, you can make money from it. There's a much better chance that you are reading more, learning more, because it's virtually impossible to create every day if you're not learning more. I like to think I'm creative, but if you shut my ability down and you prevented me from reading books every day, from watching instructional videos every day, from listening to audio recordings every day of other books, if you shut down my access to reading blogs about habits and other high-level news sources, my creativity would shrivel up. So this is another habit I think is absolutely crucial for you to give special attention to give extra cultivation to, this mega habit of creating daily. Maybe you don't have to paint more than once a year. Maybe you only write a poem once every 5 years, but you need to be creating something on a daily basis. This is something that I wrote this morning at 6 a.m. Is it all brilliant? No, but it's creation, and it's creation that I can use as talking points for this show, as a future chapter in a book, as a section of a video for an online course, as something for a shorter video, as answer to questions. So this has meaning to me. This has value. This is a higher level skill than simply a habit of, for example, I have a habit of every single day I do 20 jumping jacks. I'm glad I do 20 jumping jacks. It gets me going, makes me feel energetic, makes me feel like a kid. But just doing that jumping jack doesn't set off 10 and 20 other good things in my life. It gives me a boost of energy, but I could just as easily run an extra 60 seconds on the treadmill or walk another 1,000 steps in a day. So learn to differentiate between your higher level habits that you can't possibly do them without you doing 20 other good things, versus merely good habits. And if you have to cut back on the good habits rather than the truly great habits. And you've got to isolate what your core habits are. To me, a core mega habit is writing 500 words a day. I find when I do that, I already feel fulfilled, like I've accomplished a lot during the day, and it may only be 6:30 in the morning when I've finished. But it gives me confidence, it gives me energy, it gives me the sense that, wow, I've done already this great accomplishment. I do all sorts of things. It puts me in a productive mood. And that's why it's a habit that isn't quite the same as brushing my teeth. I like to brush my teeth, and I brush my teeth at least a couple of times a day, and I use a water pick and all that. And that is helpful for my teeth and for my health, but it doesn't set off a positive chain reaction the way other habits often do. It's this way with financing. It might be nice if you didn't spend $7 on a Starbucks sugary drink. It's very expensive, relatively. If you did that every single day, over years, it could add up to many tens of thousands of dollars. And a lot of personal finance books start off by saying, don't buy a Starbucks, don't buy a Starbucks. And certainly, if you want to reduce an unnecessary expense and unnecessary sugar content, which is in most of the drinks, that's a great thing to do. However, that's a teeny tiny habit compared to a far bigger habit, which is make more than you spend each month and never run up credit card debt that you don't pay off at the end of the month. That's a really big mega habit. If you always make more money than you spend, and you never make purchases on credit cards other than ones you can pay off each month, that takes care of any kind of Starbucks, any sort of gimmick, a candy bar you buy, buying your kid some dolls, whatever it is. None of that matters if you have this far bigger habit of make more money than you spend each month, pay off your credit cards. So always be on the lookout. Don't trick yourself into saying, well, I didn't buy a Starbucks this week, so let me buy that $5,000 leather coat that I can't afford, but I'll put it on a credit card, and I deserve it to reward myself for not buying a Starbucks. No, you can't get rid of a simple little habit or keep a little habit, reward yourself for that by breaking a really big fundamental habit. So please keep that in mind. You need to find your anchor habits, because some people can have a lot of flaws. Winston Churchill was not the best student in high school, college, drank a lot, wasn't good looking, wasn't tall, didn't have a good head of hair, rubbed some people the wrong way, seemed egotistical, but he had certain strengths too. His strengths were he wrote basically every day, and he wrote dozens and dozens of books. And he had a lifelong passion for speaking and communication and oratory and moving people. His strengths far overwhelmed his weaknesses. And apologies to our Indian audience members. I realize that giving Winston Churchill as a reference rubs some people the wrong way. I'm not in any way trying to whitewash his racism and his anti-Indian sentiments throughout his career. Everyone has weaknesses. Everyone has strengths. Your job is not to eliminate every single bad habit in your life. Far more effective to put a spotlight, to focus on what your core strong habits are, and make sure you do those every day. I'm not the best manager of people in the world. I've had various employees, never lawsuits or anything horrific, but I just know I'm not the greatest manager in the world. I've now structured my business where I don't have a lot of full-time employees, or technically any. So you got to know your strength. I'm not the best mathematician. I didn't go into a field that requires math skills, accounting skills. I'm not an accountant. I don't have the patience to fill out forms and sit in an office and do legal work, even though I was accepted to some excellent law schools. It's just not what I want to do. But that's okay, because I've structured my life around good habits. What I'm good at is I can create, and I can speak, and I can teach. So I do things like create online courses and do workshops and seminars. I'm not particularly good. I don't have a good habit of being great at office politics. And if I worked full-time for your company, I might rub somebody the wrong way and get fired in a week or two. You believe me, it's happened. Not in a long time. But that's not a habit that propels my life. I can get away with not being good at office politics because I focus on other habits that are core habits, that are powerful mega habits that can propel me to success. You don't have to be good at every habit. You don't have to be devoid of all bad habits and negative habits. As long as you isolate the core good habits in your life and stick with those, that'll cover up all kinds of other bad habits. So remember, not all good habits are created equally. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me. That was our topic B, for the day. Typically, for those of you newcomers to the show, 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 times in a show, I'll do a deep dive, a meditation on some aspect of habit formation, sometimes against conventional wisdom, sometimes digging deeper. And in that time, I often won't stop to take questions, calls, comments from others. But believe me, we want to get to all of you, not trying to be rude. And many times the segment you hear there in a topic will also be pushed out in an edited 7 to 9 minute video on places like YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and places like that. So thank you for indulging me. If you have any suggestions for topics that you think require or would be helped with a deep dive, feel free to let me know. You don't have to post it today. You can email me anytime, tj@tjwalker.com. Let's check in with our friends on social media. We have a lot of you joining us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, all kinds of places. Very happy you're with us today. And let's see, Sai says, do you suggest any content websites as a trainer? And Sai is one of our regulars here and is a professional trainer based in India. Here's what I think is the best habit. And here's what I do personally. You've got, in any profession you're in, you sort of need a broad sense of the whole spectrum of your profession. But we do live in a specialized world. The smartest thing I ever did for my own career when I was starting out is I really tried to just own 1 2-word phrase. Media training. I've done public speaking training for decades, but if you typed in public speaking for years and years and years, you didn't find me very easily on Google. But if you typed in media training, you found me, often as number 1, and still I'm typically top 10, top 15 for media training, even though I'm not doing that as much. But the way that happened is I focused on that term, media training. So I read every book on media training. I Googled every single website on training. I followed the blogs of everyone else on media training. I then wrote a short blog, and this was even before they were calling it blogs. I would write a newsletter and content for my website 7 days a week on media training, and sometimes public speaking training too. But I really went deep. Now, I still tried to learn from others in the training field. I joined organizations like the American Society of Training and Development. They've now switched names now, but that was the organization. There's the Society of Human Resources and Management. There's a number of different organizations that deal with training. I joined the Public Relations Society of America and went to all of their events for years and did media training at their events, where I looked at the larger portfolio of dealing with the media and public relations and media relations, even though my specialty was media training. So, Sai, what I would do if I were you is figure out what is it you care about the most? What niche are you most interested in? If it's public speaking, if it's media training, if it's team building, if it's leadership, focus on just one word and try to know more about that than anyone else. Blogs are great sources, but also books. I mean, these days, for I don't know how much it is in India, but it's only about $10 a month here in the United States. You can get what's called Amazon Unlimited, and you can get 10 books at a time in the Amazon Unlimited program, digital books. It doesn't cost you anything. You're just paying the 1 monthly fee. So if you wanted to, let's say, get into my niche of habits, you could join this program, read 10 books quickly, and then get another 10 books, read those, and you could quickly read hundreds and hundreds of books. Now, you can get almost that many on Google Books for absolutely nothing. So my recommendation side, don't limit yourself to just blog. There are good blogs. Now, something else I do is I use an RSS feed. Those are not as popular as they used to be. But it stands for really simple syndication. It also stands for something else, but people know it as really simple syndication. And then I have typed in the blog name of dozens of blogs that all deal with habits and personal development. So before I ever step foot in this studio to talk to you about what's going on, I've already looked at dozens and dozens of blogs from all over the world of everything they've published in the last 24 hours. So I can be up to date to give you the most interesting, useful information. So that's a technique that I use there for size. So don't limit yourself to any one place. And as you're beginning your career, someone who is not quite as active as he once was, but was instrumental and influential in my own career, is Alan Weiss. He's an American trainer, speaker, coach, and he wrote The $1 Million Speaker, The $1 Million Consultant. I would really get any of his books. And he really talks about how to get into good habits of building a business. He prides himself, he claims in not working more than 20 hours a week and making $1 million a year. I can't verify that he's done this for the last 30 years, but that's his claim to fame. And he talks about how to sell based on value rather than time, how to treat yourself with the same respect that everyone else treats the CEOs. And his thinking is quite influential in American training circles and consulting and speaking circles. I would recommend that you check out any of his books on Amazon that you can find. Thanks so much for your questions, as always, Sai. We do have a lot of news I still want to get to today that I think is important and significant for those of us who care about habits, plus your calls, questions. We still have, another 20 minutes or so. So there's still plenty of time left in the show. Lots more good content, lots more questions, comments, and your insights as well. This story.
That's all for the comments.
What's that, Marcel?
That's all for the comments.
Great. It gives me a chance to share what I wanted to share. This story jumped out at me. It's a little bit of good news about habits in the United States, but it is a part of a bigger story that's actually quite depressing. Here's the headline from today's New York Times. American life expectancy rises for first time in 4 years. Life expectancy, the most basic measure of the health of a society, and also, I would argue, the basic measure of habits of individuals in a society, rose slightly in 2018 after a rare and troubling decline driven by the opioid epidemic. So this is the first time in 4 years that the life expectancy has actually gone up. Now, on the one hand, that sounds good. On the other hand, deaths from drug use have been going up for 28 years. The first time they've gone down. And it's amazing that drug use has gone up in 28 years. It's also, frankly, bizarre and unusual for wealthy economies and wealthy societies to see their life expectancy going down. That is somewhat unusual. The United States ahead of the game there, I guess, so to speak. The average life expectancy now in the United States is 78.7 years. That's up from 78.6 years in the previous year. So a teeny tiny bit. It peaked in 2014. It was 78.9. So it's dropped more than a year. More than a year of your life has been melted away through bad habits. Now, the number one culprit here has been opioids. Those of you not familiar, these are extraordinarily powerful drugs that eliminate pain. And here's what happened. I happen to have the privilege of training doctors in upstate New York, just a year ago, who told me, frankly, that they were culpable in this. They didn't realize it. They didn't mean it. They weren't trying to do anything odd, but they were telling me, TJ, in the United States, 20 years ago when we were in medical school, our doctors who taught us, our professors said, we have to do whatever we can to eliminate pain. Minimizing pain for patients is the number one priority. Well, opioids are great at eliminating pain short term. The problem is they're so good at eliminating pain, they feel good, they get you hooked. So what would happen, as it was explained to me, is you would have people come in for some kind of a treatment, even as something as simple as a wisdom tooth, where it could be very painful that day of and the next day, and then be given a 30-day supply of opioids. You don't need it past the first day because you've got this 30-day supply. So you're going to either use it, get hooked yourself, or now you've got this thing that's valuable. You can sell it on the black market to other addicts. Created a massive crisis in the United States. I'm not as well versed on the opioid crisis in other parts of the world. But unlike almost the entire history of humanity, what happened in the United States is the richer we got, the more affluent we got, people were dying younger, not older. They were literally killing themselves. That takes us to our next topic, topic C. Why are we killing ourselves? Yes, there is some good news that life expectancy has gone up just a tiny bit in the United States in the last calendar year. But in general, we're dying at a younger age than we did in 2014. All the progress we made decade after decade for years since the 19th century have stopped. And it's not because there's an outbreak of tuberculosis or the bubonic plague. And it's not the latest virus that's come over from Asia or any place else. The problem is we are killing ourselves. And it's not from one of the biggest historical reasons of people dying, starvation. Not a lot of starvation deaths in the United States. Yes, they're hungry people. Yes, there's poverty and hunger associated, but people are not dying by and large of hunger in the United States. We are dying because we are killing ourselves. We are killing ourselves by taking too many opioids, by drinking too much alcohol, by eating too much food, by putting too much smoke in our lungs. Why are we doing that? I would argue the number one reason people are killing themselves and consuming too much smoke, too much sugar, too much fat, too much alcohol, too many opioids, too many drugs, is life is boring. They haven't found any fulfillment. They have not found a purpose in life. If you wake up in the morning and think, I can't wait to get to my office, to my studio, to my place of creation. I can't wait to help a lot of people, get a lot of positive feedback, make a lot of money. Doesn't mean you can't become a drug addict. Certainly some of the finest artists, writers in the world have been drug addicts. But in general, if you have a passion, if you found a purpose in life, if you can't wait to get to your office, your studio, your place of creation, you don't have time to eat 3 boxes of donuts typically. If you're meeting with the Steven Spielberg of your industry about a big project tomorrow at 9 a.m., you're simply not as tempted to stay up late doing opioids or heroin or cocaine. Again, I'm not in any way suggesting that people who are successful and rich and Hollywood stars are more moral than anyone else. That's not what I'm suggesting. And certainly the Hollywood example in particular is filled with people who kill themselves early. Suicide. That's a whole nother issue there. But in general, the people who are slowly eating away inside, when you look at the highest death rates in the United States, it is places like West Virginia. It is places like Mississippi. It is places like Kentucky, where people are tired of working in coal mines or getting fired from coal mines and having to work at Walmart, and they hate their job, they hate their financial situation, they hate their lives. So the only thing to do is to numb yourself. You can numb yourself in a lot of ways. You can numb yourself by eating 3 boxes of donuts a day, drinking 3 bottles of wine a day, taking opioids. There's a lot of ways of numbing yourself. Most of them will put you in an earlier grave. And the sad thing is, it has never been easier to expose yourself to a whole range of purposes and joy and fun, and let your creations come alive to help the world. It's never been easier to write a book and sell it, create a painting and market it, create a song and have the world hear it, do funny skits and create a YouTube channel. It's never been easier to run a successful business, to not have to have a boss you don't like. I've had bosses I didn't like before, and I can relate to that. And there's nothing more depressing than going to work knowing I'm going to absolutely hate the next 8, 10, 12 hours. And it can drive you to drink. I can relate to that. But you don't have to settle for that anymore. So my message to you, if you are one of those, and you don't have to be living in rural Alabama, you could be living in New York City or London. But if your life is miserable, simply eating more, drinking more, ingesting more drugs, it's going to put you in a grave 5, 10, sometimes 20 years prematurely. Why do that? You've got to find something that gives you more joy in your life than that drug, whatever that drug is, whether it's food, whether it's sugar, whether it's cocaine, whether it's opioid. We as human beings, we all fall into habits. There's a cue, there's an action, there's a response. And if your cue is, I'm sitting around with a bunch of friends and they're all doing opioids, I might as well take it. And then, I get a reward. I'm going to feel really good for the next few. I don't know how long the highs last, but presumably you feel really good, at least short term, when you're taking opioids. So you got the cue, action you take, reward. You've got to find some other cue. The cue could be going with your kids or your friends to a river and going swimming. You see a beautiful river, you hop in, you swim as the action. The reward is you feel great. You feel healthy. You feel alive. That is a whole different set of responses. It's a whole different cue, action, response. So before we celebrate too prematurely over the fact that people are now dying 1 month later than they were over the last 4 years, I think it's important to realize there are other countries and other cities in the world where people have it figured out. Whether it's Okinawa, whether it is Sardinia, there are plenty of cities around the world where people are not living in misery from age 68, 78, and then dying in front of their TV, obese, and all alone. That doesn't have to be the way, even though that is the way for a lot of people. There are plenty of societies where people are living active, fulfilled, meaningful lives and getting up, walking down to the market every day at 92, playing with grandchildren, great-grandchildren, being a caregiver at 93. 94, hosting parties and being a tour guide. Active, living. Not because they're going to the gym every day, but because they walk, they garden, they fish, they are active. And you know something else that's common among people who live into their 90s? And I don't just mean sitting in the retirement center hooked up, miserable for 25 of those years. I mean living active lives. You know the other thing that's really common among people like that? They're not doing this all day. They may have cell phones, sure, but their principal activity in life is not watching a phone, a TV, Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune, and Netflix after Netflix after Netflix. Sure, they may enjoy some video entertainment. They may enjoy a trip to the cinema. They found some purpose in life, and the purpose may be just taking care of a next door neighbor who is in ill health, and they feed that person and clean that person's home. Purpose in life may be just being the greatest caregiver ever to their grandchildren. But they find some purpose that isn't just about them. Because when you are using every evening or all day of your time drinking, eating, doing drugs, it's pretty hard to be helpful or useful to anybody else. All you're thinking is about what's going in, what's going in, what's going in. Going in your nose, going in your mouth, going in your belly, going in your lungs. And typically those things are killing you. If you want to live longer, you got to think about what's going out. It could be actual physical labor where you're helping people in your community rebuild homes. It could be actual ideas coming out of your brain to create new books and new videos and online courses and pieces of art and software. That's my preferred mode. But stuff has got to come out. If you spend enough time in your day pushing things out of how you're going to help the rest of the world, you're not going to have time. Of course, there are exceptions, but in general, you're not going to have time to push lots of drugs and alcohol and booze and smoke and garbage in you to the point where you're killing yourself 10 years prematurely or 20 years prematurely. That, I think, is the fundamental habit you need to acquire for a longer life. Finding a purpose of how you can create something. Could be manual labor, but you're creating something to push out to the world. If you're putting out more than you're pulling in, most of the time you will live a longer, healthier life. I'm hoping you can live a long, healthy life into your 80s, 90s, 100, and beyond. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me for Topic C. That's our last big topic for the day. We do have time for a few other news items, plus your questions, comments, calls, videos. And don't be shy. I know why you are shy. Most people don't like to do this, but as I mentioned earlier this week, you don't have to just type your comments into the show. We're happy when you do, but you could, in fact, actually record yourself asking a question, post that video on our YouTube channel or our Facebook channel would actually be the easiest forum to do that. Just post your video. Try to keep it 2 minutes or less. And that way, I don't have to sit here and read your comments. We can actually play a video of you. So I'm more than happy to share the spotlight. Not everything has to be TJ all the time. So please keep that in mind. Is that okay with you, Marceau?
That is super fun with me.
And I guess you could say I'm as guilty as some egotist, and that I like the sound of my own voice, but really I wouldn't mind to hear your voice too. So please keep that in mind if you ever want to share your voice here on the program. And by the way, we may start having guests on this program, other experts on habits and personal development. So if you have any suggestions for me on guests, feel free. We may have a surprise guest for you as soon as tomorrow. So you're going to want to stay tuned for the show tomorrow as well. Something I didn't get to yesterday, we touched on this problem of cell phones and how it's just completely taking over culture and ruining meal times, ruining relationships, ruining people's ability to have meaningful conversation. I wanted to share with you some thoughts written by an author on the great platform Medium.com, which is a great place for long-form journalism. And they've got some suggestions on how to deal with cell phone addiction. The first big tip says acknowledging the problem. I discovered that living the life we want requires not only doing the right things, it also requires we stop doing the wrong things that take us off track. That's from Nir Eyal, who is, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he is a brilliant researcher, I believe based in California, who's written the book Hooked, a book I highly recommend. So here's how the author is taking that. The author on Medium says, Neil's words really resonated. Says, for a long time, I was focused exclusively on the former, doing the right things. Since I discovered self-improvement, I introduced new beneficial behaviors in my life. I started exercising, journaling, meditating, tracking my habits, you named it. I believe that doing those things would change my life. But what I overlooked was that quitting the unhelpful stuff was equally important. And one of those things that a lot of us can relate to. We might not be doing opioids and drinking 5 bottles of wine a night, but for so many of us, this thing, it's a double-edged sword. It's a big problem, and it can become a sense of an addiction and a huge, huge problem. I'm linking to this story because I think it's helpful on Medium, and you can read the whole article with all the suggestions. They recommend things like acceptance and commitment therapy, something called ACT, which I hadn't heard of before. And the author walks through different steps they did in trying to wean themselves off cell phone addiction. In week number 1, the whole emphasis was on becoming aware of my cell phone use. And what the author found was, I checked my phone once per hour on average, sometimes more if I'm going through discomfort. I realized that most of my compulsive phone use was triggered by boredom, annoyance, anxiety, or other uncomfortable feelings. The problem extended also to my laptop use, when I would distract myself from writing. My go-to places on both phone and laptop were Medium, email, and Twitter. And all these things that the person focused on in week 1. Week 2, observing the intended versus actual functions of my behavior. And they charted it out. I don't have time to go into all of it, but it's a fascinating read. And for many of us who feel like we may have our stuff in order as far as exercise, going to sleep right, creating, this cell phone is something that bedevils a lot of us. And I do a lot of things that I think are helpful, and there are many times of the day when I put it away, but still, am I even guilty of the habit of using my phone too often? Yes, I have not quite conquered. That's still a habit that I'm working on every single day. One technique that I use, and I've linked to it in the show notes, is I use a device, a blocker, a web blocker called freedom.to. You can put it up on one computer and connect it to your cell phones, your laptops, your iPads, and it blocks you from access. You can block your email for set times of the day. So this is a useful tool to create friction to prevent you from certain negative habits. I've listed in the show notes for you an article that has the top 7 blocking sites. I'm interested if you use any of these blocking sites. Number 1 on the list is Freedom. I have used that for more than a year. I don't use it as often as I used to. But if ever I really feel like I have to have tremendous concentration, I have to write the entire outline of this course in the next 3 hours, I will use the Freedom blocker because it will, if I'm writing on my computer, the email is always 1 click away. You can install the blocker by the hour, by websites, or basically everything on the web. And now, if I'm writing, I have to stay there and write because there's no other place. I can't check my email. I can't go to Twitter. I can't go to Facebook. So it can be a great tool. I'm interested in your opinions if you've used any of the blocking sites. We'll be talking about that, not today, but in the weeks and months to come, because there's only greater bombardments of technology coming our way to distract us, more use of technology to create bad habits. We have to figure out a way of using technology to help support the habits we want to create the lifestyle we want for fulfillment. I'm TJ Walker. I want to really thank you for spending time with me today on the program. I've had a lot of fun. If I could ask just one favor of you, I'm not going to ask for donations or Patreon, but if I could just get you to do one favor, can you share this show with a friend or two? You can hit the share button on Facebook. You can share it on Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, but just take a moment to share the show with one friend and ask them to perhaps join you tomorrow to watch the show. We'll be back same time tomorrow, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern New York time. I'm TJ Walker. May all of your habits support your dreams.